Welcome to MCN and a series of videos where we talk to MCN staff about the long-term test bikes they've been running in 2021. And today it's all about Rich's Ducati Multistrada V4S. Hello Rich.
Hi,
and you're
Rich.
not just a member of MCN staff, you are the editor, the
For
boss
my
man.
sins, of which there are many.
So, first question is, how long have you had the Ducati and how many miles have you done on it?
So got the first one of these in March this year and had about 250 miles on it.
Yeah.
And then disaster struck, which was when Ducati had the engine recall problem.
Oh yeah.
So as you remember, they had a problem with valve guides on the new V4 engine. And what that meant was the valves were wobbling in the guides and causing engine failures.
Oh.
So at 250 miles, that bike went away. And then this one came in replacement. Since then, I've done just under 9,000 miles on it.
Right. A lot of miles.
Fair few.
Yeah.
A little bit light for me, but yeah, 9,000's a pretty decent test of a bike. So.
Yeah. And how long have you been riding for?
First rode a motorbike when I was 5 years old, so that's
20 years?
Yeah, 20.
20
thank you.
years.
Yeah, you can have a promotion. No, that would be 42 years ago. But first started riding really in earnest when I was about 11 years old,
Yeah.
and I got a Suzuki RM80 motocrosser as a combined Christmas and birthday present, having convinced my parents that if they let me ride off-road, I would never ride a bike on-road. Obviously I lied quite dramatically, but they were really anti-bike, so it was an uphill struggle. But yeah, I've been riding ever since, and got my road licence in 1994.
So what are the last couple of long-termers you've had? What did you have last year?
So last year I had Honda Africa Twin, the AS ES Plus version. So top of the range, similar spec to this bike here really, similar price as well. Before that I've had BMW GS Adventure, but I've had all sorts. You know, my history and my personal bikes is really sports bikes, so the sort of adventure bike class is relatively new in my biking history.
But it lets you do big trips, doesn't it? So where have
Absolutely,
you been?
yeah.
Where have you been on this?
Not as many places as I'd like to have done, because obviously this year's been about as free and easy as last year, really.
Yeah.
So it's been a bit disappointing. But I've still got out and about a bit. I've done a few big days in the saddle, so I really get my kicks from doing long days riding.
Yeah.
I love a 1,000-mile day if I can sneak some in. My two biggest ones this year on this bike, I did the Northumberland 250, which was a new route that launched last year. So that was, I left home in Stamford, whizzed up to Northumberland, then up round Bamborough, Castle, up into Scotland, and then back down again. So that was a 707 miles in a day. And then my other big one that I did on this bike last year was over into Wales. So over across through the Peak District, up into Anglesey, little lap at Anglesey, and then down through the centre of Wales, down through sort of Bala and Newtown, Crossgates, down that way, then back up through Worcester and up to Stamford. So yeah, that was 520 miles, I think.
In a day?
Yeah. No, I love it. Absolutely love it.
You should have my job.
And this bike's perfect for it.
Exactly.
It's so comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, it's actually, I would say, the most comfortable long-termer I've ever had.
Wow. And it's all new for this year, isn't it? New engine, new chassis, but it's got a lot of tech on it, hasn't it? So how's that been to live with? Because quite often when we do road tests, you don't get to use it really, because it's you're with it for such a short amount of time. But
yeah, I mean, it's been it's all fantastic now. So I had a few glitches with the connection when it first came out. So it's having problems. There's a little cubby hole here, and as you can see, there's a wired connection. Yeah. And you can hide your phone in there, and then connect your phone to the dash, and then you can run all of your connection through the dash and through the switchgear. And that had a few problems connecting when I first got the bike, but a quick update, quick software update solved that, and it's been absolutely faultless ever since. And the dash is brilliant, you know, especially the nav, which I use all the time. Really, really good, high resolution, clear, intuitive, as is all the switchgear. So yeah, all that side's really, really good. Other electronics, I mean, you've got every support system
There's
going.
everything there, isn't there?
You know, you've got suspension and riding modes all through the switchgear and dash. You've got two-way quick shifter. Obviously, traction control, anti-lift, I mean, Christ, do the list. It's huge, but it all works really well, and you don't actually notice it's there, which is a great endorsement.
The genius of it, isn't it?
It doesn't interfere with your ride; it merely supports you.
I think I'm right in saying this is the first long-term test bike we've had with the Radar Cruise.
Yeah.
So what's that been like to actually live with?
I was really one of the sort of Luddites going, oh, why do you need that? It's, I barely use cruise control anyway, so why do you need adaptive cruise control? Actually, it's answered all the things I dislike about cruise control. So you set it through the dash, you can set how close you want that intervention to kick in. But I use it all the time now, because you can, if you're cruising down the motorway at whatever speed you choose, let's not mention numbers.
69, 70?
That good
kind
numbers.
Of, yeah.
Good numbers.
Yeah.
You can set it, and then obviously as you approach a vehicle, it'll just hold you at the distance that you've asked it to, back from that vehicle. And as soon as it's back out your path, it'll accelerate you back up to the speed that you've picked. So it's really good because it stops you having to muck around with the cruise control all the time. Yeah. Whereas, with the old system, you're always cancelling or clicking it up, clicking it down, mucking about with it. It's a real pain. This solves it brilliantly. And because you've got the rear radar as well.
Oh yeah, and the light comes on, doesn't it?
You've got warning lights in the mirrors, which tell you if you've got a vehicle in your blind spot. And again, do you absolutely need it? We've all survived till now without it, or most of us have. But it's really good.
Yeah.
It does add something, and I'd certainly rather have it than not.
Are there any disadvantages to the radar? Does it ever get stuck?
No, not had any issues like that.
No.
The only time where it isn't as perfect as your own inputs would be is if you're pulling across, say you're on a 3-lane motorway and you're pulling across to the outside lane. If there's something in the middle lane that ordinarily you'd just breeze straight past, the radar of course sees it and goes,
hooks onto it
and slows you down, and then of course you're effectively off the throttle as you come into the outside lane, and then it goes, oh, it was all clear, wasn't a problem, you're back on the path. So it can be a little bit, it's doing what it can see, and it's not obviously as capable as your own eyes are and your own brain at processing that information. But
that will evolve as well, won't it?
Largely faultless.
So I want to bring you to the front of the bike and point you towards something quite contentious.
It's got a wheel.
It's got a wheel on it, obviously.
That's rarely
which we don't like to use a lot.
That's rarely on the tarmac, is it?
Yes. But yeah, Ducati have gone with a 19-inch front wheel compared to the Multistradas of old. So how have you found that?
That's been a tale of two tyres, really. So this bike originally comes on Scorpion Trail 2 rubber.
Really good.
Bloody good tyre, yeah, absolutely. The only problem with it on this bike in a 19 is it slightly numbs the front end feeling. It's a little bit too adventure spec, or a little bit too touring sort of focused for this bike. And this is like a massive supermoto, really. It's such a fun, aggressive, lithe bike that you want that steering control. So I know you've picked up on it in road tests quite rightly, that you lose some of that sharpness with the 19 at the front that you have with the 17. But I've now fitted, or 5,000 miles ago, I fitted these Dunlop Mutants.
Yep.
They've got a more aggressive front profile. They're a little bit softer, and it's returned all of that feel, most of it.
They look like wets as well, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, they work like wets as well. They're a brilliant tyre.
Yeah.
Really impressive. But they've given a load more confidence and feel and composure back to the bike.
Yeah.
And it's taken away most of the downsides of having a 19-inch front.
Right.
So it's still not quite as sharp as a 17, but if you really want that, obviously there's the new Pikes Peak edition now, which has got that.
So you mentioned the comfort, really, really comfortable bike.
Yep.
Another big question is that this goes up against the GS, really. It's a Ducati GS, isn't it?
Very much so.
So what is it like against the GS, because you've owned one?
Yeah, I've had loads of GSs over the years. I've probably done over 60,000 miles on GSs. Absolutely love them as well. It's one of my favourite bikes. Every year we try and think of new ways to criticise the GS, and it's
impossible
difficult.
Almost, yeah.
How do they compare? Personally, I prefer this over the GS, but that's because 99.9% of my time is spent on the road, and I think this bike just offers a slightly more refined road riding experience. But the caveat is, if I was genuinely going to go off and do a round the world adventure, I'd take the GS. It's simpler, it's easier to work on. It's less delicate off-road,
Yeah.
and in every other sense, it's just as good as this. The only reason I prefer this, I suppose, on the road, comfort's slightly better, wind noise is lower, the airflow management's much better on this bike, and it's got 30 odd horsepower more. So
Yeah.
in terms of flexibility on the road, it's
Yeah,
just
exactly.
a nicer package than the GS. But yeah, I mean, you could own it either and never be disappointed.
Exactly. It's not a cheap bike, obviously, especially in this
No.
spec. Is it worth it quality-wise? You getting your money's worth?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this bike in this spec, which is what they call the full V4S, so it's got all the extras, all the heated stuff, panniers, carbon front fender, every extra going basically, and the Akropovich, which is hiding behind this pannier that you can't see.
That's a shame.
Yeah, it's a sweet looking thing.
Yeah.
But it's in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's 22.5 grand in that spec. But last year I had Africa Twin ASES Plus. That was 21.5 grand, and the difference between the two bikes is just not even on the same planet.
That shouldn't be that much, should it, that bike?
No, not at all. But the beauty of this is everywhere you look, the quality is visible. You know, you can see where your money's gone. It feels like value for money. The fit, the finishes. I mean, this is a 9,000 mile bike now in all weathers. It's been off road. It's done everything,
brand new.
and it looks brand new.
Yeah.
It rides like brand new. The tech works. Yeah, it really is worth the price tag.
So apart from the engine, obviously that was a teething problem with these bikes at the beginning.
Yep.
Which is sorted, and the issue you were talking about with the linking up with the dash. Have you had any other problems with it?
No, none at all. It's been absolutely seamless apart from those two things. And like I say, yeah, the engine thing was obviously regrettable for an all-new engine platform to have a problem at birth is always a shame. But, you know, it's been absolutely bulletproof since. And ditto, the connectivity is completely sorted by the software update. So, yeah, no issues at all.
So the $22,000 question, pound question, would you buy one?
If I had £22,500, yes. Yeah, I mean, I can't afford to buy a bike that's this expensive personally. But I have a collection of 5 of my own. If I sold them all, I could buy one of these.
What have you got, by the way?
Oh.
You've got some lovely stuff, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got a few nice ones. So I've got a Ducati 996. I've got a Honda SP2, as in the original VTR 1000 SP2. I've got one of the last, the 2007. I've got a slab-side GSXR 750. I've got a Honda VFR 750 FIW, so the last of the pre-VTECs, and a 1975 CB750 single overhead cam.
Wow.
With the full Dunstall kit on it, so it's a proper 70s gin palace. It's an intriguing bit of kit.
Fair few toys in the cupboard.
But you know, I can't personally afford this, but would I recommend it to people to buy? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
It's worth the money.
And it won an MCM award this year, didn't it?
Yeah, as our best all-rounder for 2021.
Yeah.
And rightly so, because it just does absolutely everything. You know, it's as comfortable to tour on as an RT.
Yeah.
More comfortable and more cosseting, I'd say, than a Goldwing actually.
Yeah.
And you know, you can ride off-road. It's got enduro modes. It'll look after you. And it's, you know, it's docile in town, compliant, but it's a bit of a hooligan on the B roads if you want it to be as well.
It's got everything.
It really is. Well,
Yeah.
Hence we gave it the all-rounder award.
Exactly.
It really can do it all.
Well, thank you very much for talking us around your bike.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more of our long-term test videos coming up soon.